Hi, everyone. I see folks coming in from the waiting room. Welcome to our webinar today. We are very excited about this webinar because we've been working diligently on this new online course. So very glad to share this with you today. As I'm sure you're familiar with by now, unless you're new to your job and to NORC, our webinar today is being recorded and we will send out the link to the recording as well as all the materials following the webinar to our entire network. Please use the Q&A feature to submit questions for us, your speakers. You can use the chat feature for any comments you want to provide, or if we ask questions and you'd prefer to respond by chat, that's perfectly fine, or you can chat with your peers. Please don't unmute your line until you raise your hand and we call on you. I believe this is set up where you can ask questions that way as well. And then please complete the evaluation at the end of the webinar, and we'll remind you about that as well. So the purpose of today's webinar is we hope you walk away with a few things. We intend that you'll be able to explain why we created this course and the intended use of this course. We also expect that you'll be able to demonstrate how to find the course on our website and how to use the course and related materials. And we really hope that you'll walk away considering how your program could utilize this course in your state training process. And so while you're thinking about that, make sure, of course, that you communicate with your state ombudsman and state office because they're the ones that will have the admin, will be able to enter the admin side of things and set up the course and integrate it into your statewide training. So Maria will, for our speakers, Maria is going to cover why we created this course, the purpose of the course, and give you some tips on how to use it. And then Katie's going to come on and she's going to share her screen and get into the course so you can actually see a little bit what it looks like. And you can ask some questions as we poke around in there. And then I'll close out by highlighting some resources that we either updated that you should be familiar with if you use the curriculum, the original curriculum already, as well as some new resources that we've created to help support you in understanding how to integrate this training into your training process and how to access the materials, frequently asked questions, and so on. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Maria Green. She is a consultant with us and Consumer Voice. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Libby, if you'll go to the next screen, please. So as Amity was sharing, we didn't do this all on our own. We had a lot of partners and collaborators. And on the next slide, you'll see that we worked in collaboration with the University of Maine, Southern Maine, Muskie School of Public Service. And they helped us develop the 10 online modules. And we based it all on the written curriculum that you've been using already. And in particular, we want to give it a shout out. So if some of you are on the line today that are from Arkansas, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Tennessee, or Utah, and if you by chance helped your state ombudsman with the testing, we appreciate that. We were very thankful to get the detailed feedback from participants in the state. So please know that your peers helped to review this and gave really good input. On the next slide, we'll talk about what this means for your program. So when we were developing this, and we put into mind several things. One is that this would be a supplement to your state's long-term care ombudsman certification training. Supplement in that you also have the very detailed written curriculum. You've probably got information about state-specific rules, regulations, and laws that you train your representatives on. So this is in addition to, or alongside of, I'd like to say. It allows you a lot of flexibility. So if you're a trainer for your region, your district, your area, and you're training other volunteers or other staff, I think this is going to be a good enhancement. There's the flexibility there for you to be able to say, read this online, this module 1 online at your own pace. We'll cover it quickly when we have an in-person training, for instance. And then hallelujah, you're going to be able to track everything. So it's going to be really cool. Katie will cover that briefly, but the idea is that you as an individual would be able to track and keep up with how many modules you have completed. And then your state ombudsman will be able to log into the system too and see how many modules have been completed. Okay. Next slide. So here's the intended use, and I kind of mentioned it briefly, but you're going to need to work closely with your state ombudsman's office to make sure how you incorporate this and that it becomes a companion piece to your written curriculum. And some examples are you could ask participants in your class to review an online module before the class or after the class. You could ask them to do some of the hours by independent study. And then let's say you had a really challenging discussion in a classroom setting and you want to reinforce what they were being trained on and what they learned. You can ask them to go back and review a module or to complete a module. And it's going to be an excellent resource for those continuing education hours. So if you need your representatives to put in a certain number of hours every year, which I believe you do, this will help. And then also if you're working with a volunteer or a staff representative who maybe is struggling with a certain area and understanding, for instance, confidentiality, you could ask them as a part of your discussion with them and retraining to go back to that particular module. And I believe now what you've probably all been waiting for is that you'll get to hear from Katie. And she's going to, the screen's going to come down. Katie will come on and show you how to navigate the site. So Katie, thank you.
Hi everyone. I am just going to share my screen and show you how to access the training center. Okay, so I'm going to start with our website and show you how to get there from our website. So when you go to ltcombudsman.org and then hover over the support tab and then click on training, it will take you to a landing page. And then if you click on this second button called Initial Certification Training Curriculum, this is the page with all of the materials that we're going over today and a link to the training center. So if you scroll here, everything I'm going to mention today are in FAQs. So it's a PDF that has FAQs of how to get to the training center, how to access courses, and how to get your certificate. So you can share this with your trainees just so they have all this information that I'm going to talk about today in one PDF. And then to get to the training center, you click on this button and it will open into a different website. So this is our LMS, which stands for Learning Management System. And if you are coming here for the first time, you would have to click sign up to create an account. So you'll just fill out this information and then click create an account, and then you'll get a confirmation email once you're in here. But since I already have an account, I am just going to click login. And if you just give me a second, I'm going to switch to a learner account or a trainee. So if you're a trainee and you're coming in for the first time, this is what it'll look like for you. This is your dashboard. And you'll see there's the most recent course that I went into, and then there's my certificates are down here, and then just some statistics. And so if you want to look for the courses, you would click this tab on the left called Course Catalog, and this is where you'll find all of the modules. So there's 10 of them here, and this is all part of the initial certification training. And you can sort them. They're right now sorted by number. the order of the modules, but you can sort them however you want. If you want to do it by name, date, price, they're all free, so that doesn't matter. And I just wanted to mention a little bit about accessibility as I click into one of these. So we worked with the platform and our contractors to ensure as much accessibility as possible. So the videos include optional captions. Many of the activities have voiceovers. And then in each course, there are accessibility tips that describe how to use the keyboard and screen reader navigation in each module. So when you click on the course, this is the landing page. So I've already been in this first module, so it says revisit course, but if you're in here for the first time, it'll say go to the course. So you would just click this button. And then you can minimize this sidebar over here to make everything full screen. So this is the first section of the first course. So if I just scroll through, I can just show you what it looks like. So this is the welcome. So each course looks just like this. You'll scroll through and read, and these are the accessibility tips I just mentioned. So you'll read the page, it's just like a website, and then you'll go to the next section and it scrolls through. And then as I move through each section, you can see your progress on the left here. So there's 10 total modules, and then each module has different sections. So as you're reading and doing the knowledge checks and clicking through, you'll make your way all the way to the quiz at the end. So just to quickly show you what this looks like. As you take the quiz, just know that your state ombudsman can log in and see reports of your progress and your quiz results from each course. Okay. And then once you're finished, you can go back. And now this is the My Courses tab. So any course that you've entered once and you're not ready to finish, you can come back to it here and you'll see your progress. So I've completed this one, but I've entered module 2, but I haven't completed it. So it shows up in the My Courses tab. And just know that to get your certificate, once you complete a course, you have to receive 80% or higher on the quiz to receive your certificate. So you'll be able to immediately download the certificate and you'll receive an email with a link for your certificate. And if you miss it or you want to go back to it, you can click on the Home tab and scroll down to this Achievement section and then click My Certificates, and you'll be able to download your certificate from here. Or you can click View Certificates and you can preview them. You can also click this drop down and then click My Progress, and it takes you to this same page as well. And then we suggest that you email your certificate to your supervisor to get credit for the course. But just know that it does not certify you as a representative of the Ombudsman Program. The online course is part of the training process and does not meet federal training requirements for certification. So you must complete all certification requirements and then be designated by your state ombudsman to perform duties as a representative. So this platform is pretty simple. There's just 3 buttons here. So once you get in, you create your account and you start clicking around, it should be pretty straightforward, but if you have questions or if you get lost in here, you can always send us an email at ombudscenter@theconsumervoice.org, and I can show you where everything is. Are there any questions while I'm sharing my screen that I should show now, or should we wait?
Most of the questions are about content and other things, so I can address those.
Okay.
Do you have any questions about how to operate the course? So let me see. Actually, one you could address: who will be able to access the reports or transcripts? Can more than just the state ombudsman access this information?
So the state ombudsman can decide who they want to access it. So if there are other trainers or if there's state staff, they can just give us the okay that I can then give them access to see reports and monitor trainees. So anyone can. We just want to make sure the state ombudsman is good with it.
Right. Thank you. Another question, not really about the system, but we can answer it. And could y'all please put your questions in the Q&A box and not the chat? It just helps us keep track of them. So this can be used for CE credit for ombudsman volunteers. Katie, do you want to answer that one? And then I can chime in if needed.
Yes, it can be. So the certificates will show that they completed it, so that they completed the course, and it'll have a time on it. So it can be used for that.
Thanks, Katie. So this particular course is all about initial training certifications. So like Maria, I believe, mentioned a little while ago in the intro, if you have someone that is certified, so it's a volunteer that's already certified, but perhaps he or she needs to brush up on disclosure and confidentiality, then you could have them complete that module about that, take the quiz, and then count that time as continuing education, because continuing education only counts after they're certified. Great.
Katie, this is Maria. In the chat, someone asked about the initial login. Will you go back to the beginning where you were
Oh, sure.
going to the long-term care ombudsman tab?
Sure. So, well, let me start from the beginning. So you go to our website, ltcombudsman.org, hover over support and then training, and then click this second button, and then on-demand training center. It jumps you down to the same page, but then this button takes you out of our website and into the training center. So if this is your first time setting it up an account, you would click sign up here.
Thanks, Katie. So another question just to clarify if, well, two, does the state ombudsman get automatically notified of quiz reports?
Yeah, well, the state ombudsman gets a report once a month that shows who has gotten a certificate that month, but they can request that report to come as often as they want. So if they want it every day, once a week, they'll get a report of who has received a certificate. But it's not
Thank
quiz
you.
results, it's who's completed and gotten 80% or more.
And if the state ombudsman for some reason wants to see the quiz results, they can get the quiz results. And I believe you and Libby checked that they can also see how many times they took it. Is that right? And which questions they missed? Is that correct?
Yeah, the state ombudsman can log in and see the results of the quiz, which quiz questions they missed, how long they took on the quiz, and how many attempts they had.
Excellent. Thank you. And then one last question about kind of how the system works. Just to clarify, if the state ombudsman wants someone in their state office or even local ombudsman or a different trainer to have access to the information, they just contact you, Katie. Is that correct? And let them know who can have access?
Yeah, that's right. And there can be multiple people from each state.
Great. And then, sorry, one more about the system.
No, that's okay.
Someone asked if there are firewalls between states, so you can't see other people's information. Could you talk a little bit about that? I know we didn't mention this, and maybe I should have at the very beginning. We did have a call last week on the 21st with state ombudsman specifically about the administrative side of things. So we did talk to them first, and of course can troubleshoot with any states individually too. But yeah, if you could talk a little bit about how that information is viewed.
The state ombudsman can log in and filter by state. So they'll be able to select their state and then they'll see only information from their state. But if they select a different state, they'll be able to see that state's reports.
Thank you. And just so y'all know, there's not confidential information on that page. So even if they're skimming through and see names, it's literally just names and if they got a certificate. So, okay. So I think most of the other questions are about the content, and I'm going to address some of those when we go over the instructions. And if we missed any other questions or they come in later, Katie, we can address those.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. All right, give me 1 minute. Let me pull this back up. Okay. So do you see the slides? Did I do it correctly?
Yep, looks great.
Excellent. All right. It's always hit or miss. So we already talked about the intended use. I wanted to, because a lot of the questions y'all are asking can be addressed actually in these instructional materials. So we'll do our best to answer all the questions, but then I encourage you after the webinar to go to the website and read these instructional materials. So if you have used our initial training curriculum in the past, let me turn on my video because I'm just talking to myself. If you already use our initial certification training materials, a lot of the instructional resources should look familiar to you. So for example, on the revised side of that slide, there's the introduction and overview, preparation checklist and training tips, state-specific information to include links to the videos, glossary of keywords, acknowledgement, and additional resources. So all of those instructional materials have been revised to incorporate information about the online course. So a few of you asked, how much time does each module take? That information is in the intro and overview and in the FAQs. And I believe somewhere in each module, but I may be mistaken. But anyway, you'll get an idea. Most modules in the online course take about an hour, hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. However, it also depends on the pace of the trainee. They could take a little bit longer. Another question that someone asked was about state-specific information and if you need to add state-specific information to the course. No. So what we did with the online course is we only shared information that was applicable to every state. So all federal information. And then you'll see the trainee when they're going through the course. So for example, Module 6, Section 5, it will say, go to your main curriculum for state-specific information about residential care communities. And so they wouldn't even do that in the online course. They would rely on getting that information from whatever training materials you use and provide. And so on the new side of this slide, if you look at that third bullet, the trainer guide, we mention what is not included in the online course. So we created that hoping that that would help you figure out when you're looking at your current materials, our revised main curriculum materials, and now this online course, you can look at it big picture and think, oh, okay, that wasn't included in the course, so I need to include this in a different way. Or we can ask them to take modules 1 through 3 online before orientation, and we can cover that material that they learned, but we also need to add in state specific, et cetera, et cetera. So we really went through the whole thing and tried to be as systematic as possible to help with your planning. And then also on the new side of that slide, there are FAQs for accessing and using the training center. That's for anyone, so that's for local representatives. Then there's specifically some FAQs for state ombudsman or whoever in the state office is that person that's going to administer the course and help you integrate it into your training and have access to that side. And we also have a revisions chart, which I'll go into in the next slide. So for those of you that have been around for a few years, you may recall that we launched this main curriculum, the trainer guide, the training manual, the training PowerPoints back in 2022. So obviously a lot's happened since 2022. There have been updates to the ombudsman role. There have been updates to nursing facility requirements and guidance. So as we were looking at the main curriculum materials to figure out what to put in the online course, we also went through those main materials and updated and revised them to make sure they were accurate based on, like I said, those new federal regs and guidance. We also took out things that we felt would help us, one, not have to update this every year because it's massive, and two, help you to keep your materials more evergreen. So for example, there were some references to NORS, National Ombudsman Reporting System data, in one of the modules, and it was like the top 5 complaints and some other data. Well, obviously that changes every year. And so we took that out, and then we added notes saying, for your state, review your top 5 complaints in lieu of the NORS data that would have to be updated all the time to try to make this more evergreen. And to help you understand what changes we made, we listed every single change in this revisions chart. We listed what the change was, what module and section it was in both the trainer guide and the trainee manual, and which slide it was on in the PowerPoint. So that will help you understand what changes were made. And we were hoping to provide this information so you could make the decision, is it easier for me to take those revisions and revise our current materials, or should we just use the 2025 materials and add our state-specific information? So we were trying to be sensitive to your time and resources, and so that's why we created that. So before I go to key takeaways, yeah, let's see. So just as a reminder, the online course complements the main curriculum. It does not replace it. And I did see some very specific questions in the Q&A that I will get to about that. States still need to meet federal minimum training requirements, and some states greatly exceed that. So whatever your state requirements are, that's what you have to meet. Taking the online course, like Katie mentioned, does not automatically mean that a trainee is certified. And if you're interested in incorporating the training, obviously speak with your state ombudsman or state office. If you encounter issues with the system, contact Katie. We'll have our email addresses in the slide deck. But if you want to just brainstorm on how you can use this, we'd be happy to talk to you. So feel free to reach out. The resources, like Katie said, everything's on one page, but I did want to provide those URLs for you. So the first one, it takes you directly to the NORC curriculum page. The second one takes you to the Administration for Community Living's minimum training standards, in case you're not familiar with those. We did do an office hour yesterday about those minimum standards as well as best practices. There were a lot of excellent training tips shared by your peers, so I included a link to that slide deck as well. So with that, I'm going to go to the questions. Let's see. All right, bear with me while I go through this. Okay. How much expected time? So I mentioned that, yeah, everything takes on average anywhere from 1 hour to 2, but it does depend on your trainee's pace. Do you have to complete the modules in order before you can go to the next one? Good question, and no, you don't. The one thing that you do have to do in order, though, is when you start a module, you have to progress through that module in order to kind of unlock the next section. But you can complete modules in different orders because we do suspect that there may be states that don't want to use modules 1 through 4, but they do want to use the rest, which again is totally fine. We were trying to make it as flexible as possible. So that's actually why we broke it into 10 modules and a course per module instead of putting it all in one big long course that couldn't be broken up. Can this course be part of the 36 hours? So yes, this absolutely is based on the initial certification training content. However, it can't replace all of it. So when you look at the breakdown of the minimum training standards, they have slotted out that you could have a maximum percentage of time spent on self-study. So we envisioned this course to be used for self-study. So as Maria mentioned earlier, you could have someone, I think a variety of ways. So let's think if you are in a county and you get some volunteers that are interested, but you're not going to be able to provide training for a month. You could even send them a course or two, a module or two, especially the first or second that talks about the purpose of the Ombudsman program and what they do, and use that almost as an orientation and screening. And perhaps they look into that a little bit more and then they don't want to proceed with training, then you've saved yourself a lot of time in training that person, then finding out later that they don't want to do it. Or they could just take some of the courses before they even show up in person, so they at least have a foundation that you can build on. So it won't replace all the hours. You still have to do the classroom training, the field training, all of that. But we do hope that this will make the training that you provide in person more concrete and stick more. And again, give access to people remotely. Let's see, state-specific information, we addressed that. The LMS software is called Talent LMS. And if that's wrong, Katie or Libby, please correct me.
That's right.
And Libby, of course, is on the webinar too. And I do want to say that Libby and Katie did a lot of the heavy lifting to sort through all these different LMS systems and understand even what the acronym LMS stands for, Learning Management System. Katie, a question about changing credentials to be a trainer and not a learner, kind of when you did that at the very beginning. Could you explain that a little bit about
Yeah.
why you would need to do that? Yep.
Yeah. So if you are the trainer and your state ombudsman wants you to be the one to see the reports, to view who's taken the quizzes and gotten certificates, then you would email me and I would switch your role from learner to trainer and then give you access to all of that information.
Thank you. Those certified prior to the online training can still access this program. Absolutely. So if you have someone that's already certified, and like I said, you really need them to focus on something for continuing education, yep, they can just go in and set up a trainee account. Yes, Carol.
I don't know that you answered one of the questions above, is can anyone create an account? So so in other words, can a person off the street open up an account without even contacting the Ombudsman program first?
Katie, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah. Yeah, anyone can create an account and start taking training if they would like to. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but there's no, again, no harm. And if someone does that, maybe they're just curious about the training and they want to look into it. It doesn't mean anything. And it's mentioned throughout the course that it doesn't mean they're certified. But yes, theoretically, because our website is a public website, obviously funded with federal funds. So it's a public website and folks can go on and explore. I don't really anticipate that happening, but good question. Can you use it for ongoing quarterly training for volunteers? Yeah, it depends. So throughout the course, there's several, we tried to, as Maria mentioned, really make sure that we were using adult learning techniques. And so there's a lot of videos in there. So theoretically, you could ask them again to watch a module that has a video in there. They can watch the video and you can ask them specific questions that would count towards their CEs. So, let's see. Does this replace the requirement for initial certification training to be instructor-led? No. Good question. So instructor-led, again, kind of what we were talking about, how there's a certain maximum number of hours or a percentage of time that you can spend for classroom training, you need field training and self-led learning. So no, it doesn't replace that requirement. You still have to do a mix of all those things. This would really be used primarily for self-led home learning, instruction, homework, pre-work, that kind of situation. For states that have other modules with state-specific information, those modules will not be part of this training. Yes, that's correct. This, again, is all very general and applies to all states. Will there be additional training for administrators for state ombudsman? Yeah, we can definitely provide that training. It's just, it may be one-on-one or we may do a group webinar. It just really depends. But as states start to think about how to use this, we can definitely provide that support.
And I want to add, we also have FAQs for trainers, similar
Yeah.
PDF. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the slide that I showed a few minutes ago of what was revised and what was new. A lot of those questions will be answered on those FAQs and those other materials. So this is a good question, and Katie, I don't know the answer. So if the state ombudsman grants access to another trainer, will the trainer see quiz results statewide, or can we limit it to a trainer's region? I assume statewide, but if you want to clarify.
Yeah, it would be statewide. So you would filter by state and then you would see the person's name and then click on their name to see their quiz results.
Great. Thank you. And how many hours does this count towards the 36? It depends on how many hours, how many modules you choose to integrate. So, and again, it can't exceed the number of hours allocated for self-study. And I think you already answered this, Katie, but is there some way for volunteer coordinators to get alerts when folks have completed the modules?
They'll get alerts when someone receives a certificate. So they could complete the module, but say they don't get 80%, you wouldn't be alerted. You only get alerts once they receive their certificate.
Great, thank you. And are questions, answers randomized some way that answer keys will not be easily available after this is released? No, they're not. The LMS system, we're pretty limited in how we ask questions and receive those answers. So they're not randomized. It's all the same quiz for each module. And to clarify, if a trainee does not answer 80% of a quiz correctly, then they're not allowed to proceed and won't get their certificate. And so that trainee can take the quiz again and again until they pass it at 80%. So we unfortunately can't prevent cheating, but hopefully there's some honest folks out there. Let's see. I also wanted to clarify about continuing education. It's our goal now that we have this learning management system and the other software that we use to create the course to put into the LMS, we intend to create courses specifically for continuing education. So while you can absolutely use this, as we already described, we will have in the future some courses that are specific to continuing education. Let's see. How do we invite a trainee to the program? So to the online course, Katie, I assume that's in the FAQs and you would just send them the link to access our website and explain to them like we did on how to start the course. Correct?
Yep. Yeah, just send them the link and then when they sign up, they'll have to select their state. So then, yeah, that'll be good.
So someone asked if we could limit which modules someone has access to. No, but as the trainee, you can instruct them which modules to take. So again, it's a public website available to anyone. So when they open it up, they will see the 10 different modules. So you'll have to provide instructions on which ones they should take, but we can't like lock one. Good question. Webinar, okay. So someone commented about imposters trying to get into care homes. With this training, they can do a better job faking it. Again, they may get a certificate if they complete a module, but the certificate even says this does not mean you're certified. So they would need a certification badge or whatever you give to your representatives to show that they are a designee of the office to be a representative when they visit. And you may want to instruct your facilities of what the representative is supposed to show in order to verify that they are a representative. So this should not cause harm, but good question. And let's see. So yes, I'm seeing a couple comments about doing a smaller group, especially with state level staff that are going to administer this course. Again, we're happy to do that. And we did tell the state ombudsman during the call last week that they were more than welcome to include their state staff if they have stuff to do with statewide training to join that call. So they could have heard about it first before this webinar. So we did definitely open up that invite. And we do have a listserv of state level folks as well as statewide volunteer coordinators. And we can and will reach out to those listservs. So good questions. All right. And yes, you can go straight to the quiz. So again, there were only so many things that we could do with this LMS platform that are available to us, and we had no way to block the quiz unless they read all the material, because if someone already took the quiz, didn't meet the 80% passing rate, and had to take it again, we didn't want them to have to go through the entire module content again just to take a quiz because they missed one question. So yeah, we know it's not ideal. They could go straight to the quiz. So again, we're doing the best we can with the platform we have, and there's going to have to be some trust for the folks that you train that they don't do that. And so maybe you'll have to explain that in the training process. Maria.
Some of the questions too, they had to have taken the time to do the video, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, so while yes, a lot of smart people probably could just go right to the quiz, there are some things that if they didn't do the little exercise or they didn't do the little video and skipped over that, there's a good chance they might miss it. The other thing I wanted to add as far as flexibility as a trainer, because there is a lot of good video clips and other like video interactive things. So if you wanted to use it during one of your classroom trainings, you could go pull up online one of the modules, use the video as part of your in-classroom discussion. Now that wouldn't take the place at the end, but you can find ways once you, the trainer, go through all of this and you see, oh, I really like that exercise or that video, you may want to incorporate it into your online training. I mean, your in-person training. I think that might build some excitement too for the trainees to use it.
Yeah. So, and Maria, thanks for bringing that up because I know I mentioned it last week, but forgot to say it now. As Maria described, built into each module, there's what we call knowledge checks. So for example, they watched a video and then we asked them to respond to 3 questions, or do an activity where you receive a complaint about food, who is the best staff person to talk to, and they have to connect the dots between those. If they don't complete those activities, then they can't move forward in the course. So that is helpful. And yes, the modules are definitely more federal level than state level. Again, the initial certification training materials that we created 3 years ago are based on federal information. And then we have a whole list of state specific information that states are required to add in.
And I just wanted to mention that if you're worried about people going straight to the quiz and you're the instructor, you'll be able to see how long they spent in the module. So if it looks like 15 minutes, you'll know that they skipped right to the quiz. So.
Good point. Good point, Katie. So, I just thought of something else I was going to mention and it just went. Oh, that happens all the time now. Huh. Okay, so I can't think of it. Maybe it'll come back around before we close out. But yes, absolutely reach out to us if you want to do some small group discussion, some brainstorming, even, of course, with your state ombudsman, state staff, etc. Spend some time, like I said, going through those instructional materials and poking around even on the course and get a better feel for it. And then you can reach out to us with any questions that weren't answered in those materials. No, there's no way for regions to have separate alerts or reports. So again, once you're granted access to that, you sort by state. That's just the only way that the platform allowed for that. Unless we were to create, I remember Katie, I think, and Libby, the only way we could have achieved that is if we literally created 52 different online courses and then granted a state access to one of those 52. And then you could sort out better the regions, but that was
Yeah.
not that was not possible. But yeah, we hope you use this in a variety of ways. Oh, and I was going to say those activities, just like Maria said, you could pull up a module, watch a video, and ask those questions just to have a different way to train in person. But you will see in the list of what we did not include, we obviously didn't include role plays and other things that are in the initial curriculum because you can't do those online and those are still really important to do in person. Carol, did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to mention there's been a lot of talk about volunteers from people asking questions. This curriculum is appropriate for staff. I mean, there really isn't a difference anymore between training for volunteers and training for staff. So people who have staff who've been on, board for 10 years, going through this training will be really maybe helpful for them to be reminded of the basics of the program.
Exactly. It's as you all know, in the ombudsman rule, a representative is a representative, and there's minimum training requirements, whether you are a paid representative or a volunteer. So yes, when we created the initial certification training, it was for everybody, anyone that's going to be a certified representative. And we did that so we could hopefully make it easier for you states to meet those minimum training requirements. How will changes to the federal final rule impact this training? Donnell, if you could, can you unmute and elaborate a little bit more on that question? Or type it in, whatever you're comfortable with.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I was just curious because I was reading over some of the changes to the federal final rule. I was just wondering if there, will need to be, ongoing updates to the training to incorporate any of the changes. And I don't have a specific example of a change. But I'm just wondering if this is
Yeah.
an
Yeah,
ongoing.
good question. Yes. Good question. So the revision chart that I mentioned a few slides ago, that includes changes that we had to make due to changes in federal regulations and guidance. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we're trying to make it, Donnell, sorry, as broad as possible, but still relevant and still correct in order to not have to make big overarching changes again. So yeah, so that's why we identified those changes for you. So hopefully it'll be easier whenever you make a decision on how you're going to incorporate the materials. Yep.
Thank you.
And Connie, how do you access state level training? I'm not 100% sure if you want to elaborate on that question as well, but any state level training, you need to reach out to your supervisor or your state office and communicate with them. about state provided training. So like I said, we did meet with state ombudsman and some state staff last week to introduce this and roll it out and talk about the admin side of things. We'll continue to have this conversation because I know this is a big change, and we're happy to meet with anybody one-on-one or in a group setting or state by state to figure out how to incorporate this, because we know that training is challenging for a variety of reasons, and we want to make it easier for you. Okay, let me see. I believe that hit all the questions. And another good question, Connie. So I don't know if you can see her question, but she was asking about the freeze, the memo that came out late Monday night, freezing all federal grant funding. And she was asking if it included the ombudsman program. So that memo did come out late Monday night. It was supposed to be effective by 5 Eastern Time Tuesday. A federal judge stepped in and blocked it from going into effect in order to review it more the coming Monday. But since then, that memo has been rescinded. And so I don't have any more information other than that, but we did look at the 50-page document that was a spreadsheet for governments, agencies to review programs. And yes, AAA's Ombudsman program, all programs that were funded with federal funds were on that list to review. But that is all the information we have right now, Connie. It's a good question. Definitely talk to your state ombudsman and state office, and we'll continue to share information as we have it. So contact information is right here. Again, please reach out to us. As I said, we will email this presentation and slides and all the materials after the call today. There is a link to the PowerPoint and other links to other resources in the chat, and the link to the evaluation will be dropped in the chat as well, and I believe you'll be directed to it when we close. Let's see, is there a hand raised? If so, you can unmute if you have a question. Let's see. Regina, did you have a question?
No.
No? Okay. Just making sure. Thank you for letting us know. So again, I want to give a huge thank you to the Administration for Community Living, ACL. Without their funding, additional funding, we would not have been able to develop this course. So we really hope, our intent was to, like I said, make the training process easier for you, grant more access to training materials, especially for those in areas where it's hard to drive and do in-person training. Now there's more of an opportunity to do some self-study. A huge thank you to Maria Green. She led this project for us in coordination with the University of Southern Maine. Thanks to Carol Scott for your thoughtful and detailed edits of the curriculum, and to Katie for the final formatting of materials. And thanks again to our pilot states from Arkansas, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Tennessee, and Utah. Really, your input really improved our instructional materials. And just so you know, some of the representatives in those states even went into the modules and took the modules and gave us feedback if there were some errors or they had some questions. So they spent a lot of time going through those materials, and we really appreciate it. So thank you all for joining. We hope you find this helpful. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions, but I encourage you, go straight to the website after this if you have time and you're in your office. Check out the training and instructional materials, and then let us know what questions you have. So with that, I'm going to give the chat a check one more time, see if there's anything I'm missing. The post-webinar evaluation is in there. If you could go in and fill that out, that would be great. And thanks again for all the work you do. You really matter, and you're important to all those residents. So thank you, and have a great day. Bye.